I don't know, or put them at the end after city commission somewhere.
Have you talked to the city manager about this?
We have not talked about any, the scheduling should, I think Commissioner brought up the annual.
Brought it up the other day too.
Right.
Yesterday.
I'm saying that I think we would just, it would be helpful to get an idea of when we're talking about for some of these meetings. I'm saying that I think we would just, it would be helpful to get.
Okay, why don't we, you know, we have an agenda and we did modify it. And you guys were notified about the, after we published it, that we were going to have the mask proclamation, you know, so everyone was aware of that. But we can't just be willy-nilly dropping in at the meeting agenda items. That we cannot do. So why don't we save that for city commission comments? Okay.
Well,
So we're gonna stick with the agenda, and then we'll pull the rest of it in the comments. Correct?
Well, she wants to talk about schedule for workshops, and what else did you say, Lisa?
well, workshops, meetings that are coming up, and as well, it occurs to me with this virus thing getting worse, we have never really talked about just issues of how we're going to conduct meetings in the future. There are some technicalities attached to this, but we can put that in commission comments as well.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay.
Good. All right with me.
Okay, moving on here. We have consent agenda, and that is the minutes from May and our June meetings. Everyone's had a chance to look at it. If no one objects, if there is no objection.
Well, actually, there are a couple of issues. I sent them out to Deb. You know, and also we didn't get our minutes until Tuesday morning, and there's 2 sets of them.
May and June.
Yes, I know. The May minutes are coming, you know, 2 months after the meeting. So I don't know.
Commissioner supplied some comments on the meeting minutes, and then Deb had emailed them to everybody. Whenever you had seen them and sent them on, just so you would have them in your email.
Right, hold on. Okay, trying to find my minutes here. For the May minutes, DOT, concert, blah, blah. Actually, these are not in what I sent to Deb. In the May minutes on page 2 under audit presentation, there was a motion by Commissioner Banks. We voted to accept the audit presentation, but I think it's important to include Commissioner Banks. I recall did ask that lengthy reports such as the audit be provided more than 4 days in advance of the meeting, and I'm in agreement with that. And I thought that would be helpful to note in the record that was requested.
Well, minutes, you know, if you look at Robert's rules, are a record of what was done, not what was said, or so. I think that's outside of that.
Well, I don't. I think that's a specific request, and it's an important one. And if you don't care for that one, actually at the bottom of the page under city manager report, the next, well, between the next to the last paragraph from the bottom and the last paragraph, Commissioner Kane DeVito, I raised the question of whether an expenditure for the website was authorized for this year's budget, which is an important point because under the city attorney report, the city attorney suggested that the commission formally authorized the city manager to design the website and have us approve the budget. And he did that because I specifically raised the question. And I would like that included in the minutes, please.
I remember reading about that. Which paragraph?
Okay, and it's page 2 under city manager report.
Yep, at the bottom.
Right. Well, actually, the next to the last paragraph after the word departments, I would request to add Commissioner Kane DeVito raised the question of whether an expenditure for website was authorized for this year's budget, period.
That's
Because-
your, okay, so you want to add that
Yes, please.
verbiage?
Yes.
What about June? Anything else in May?
But nope, nothing else in May. I think it could.
Did you
The rest-
talk
the rest-
to,
Let's jump to June, or
well,
should,
did you
should
talk
we adopt
to
it?
administrative assistant before tonight about making those changes possibly?
well, that's a change that I think we should all agree to. And, I'm doing the best I can, Mayor. I didn't get all the documents in my packet. I have 2 months of minutes to look at, and I've had 2 resolutions sent to me by email. So I'm doing the best I can. So that is an addition to the May minutes that I would like added. Deb does not add substantive additions like that. She prefers they be brought to the commission. So if there's no objection, I would like that one to be added to May.
Well, the substantive additions, we just got late, so we just sent them on. But those 2 that Commissioner DeVito just brought up, they were not in part of the email, just so you know. Just so
Right.
you're-
Saying I'm raising it now because that's something that I share with the commission.
Does the audio record reflect that change? That is, because I don't recall who raised that. I remember, I thought it was just out of the, I don't want to say out of the blue, but out of the blue that Jay Asbury raised the issue of that we should make sure that we approve the expenditure of that money.
No, actually, Mayor, I did raise the issue. You said it was a technicality. Then at some point, Mr. Asbury was absent from his Zoom window, and he came back and his words were, to paraphrase, Commissioner DeVito was correct. You did not authorize the website funding in the budget, and that we should approve the funding in the contract. So,
well, if the audio tape bears that out, I have no objection personally. Okay, and what about June?
okay, and for June on page 2, in the 3rd paragraph from the bottom, in the next to last sentence, it refers to the State Board of Elections. This is the issue, local election process discussion. And I did send this to the administrative assistant. Instead of State Board, it should say County Supervisor. Because we're talking about Mr. Overturf.
Page 2, where is that? Because you say 3rd paragraph, that would be
From the bottom.
Gotcha. All right.
Right, down local elections process discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Right, 3rd line down in the middle where it says State Board, it's actually County Supervisor.
Right.
Because obviously that's where our elections are conducted.
Okay.
So, and so that's what I have for June.
Is that everything?
Well, some of it would maybe provide a little more clarity, but they're not essential. So
Okay.
that's why I sent them to the administrative assistant for her to deal with or not deal with as she sees fit.
Okay. Do I hear a motion with the modifications?
I make a motion with the necessary modifications.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. It's carried. Aye. All right, moving on. All right, we have general business, resolution R20-04, announcement of the 2020 election. Did you get my message, Lisa?
I'm not sure.
On the
which
phone.
message?
I called you about, I left a voicemail, 20-4, which is number 8.
How this afternoon?
Yes, I did. Anyway, I was
No.
going to ask you if you would like to read that. You don't have to.
Oh,
Mayor,
okay.
Mayor?
Sure. That's the easy one. But I,
Hold on, hold on.
We skipped.
Did we?
what
we
did we
skipped
skip?
public comment. We have public comments.
Oh,
Oh, is that where you're going to do the reading of the letters?
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Okay.
Oops. But
Sorry
the
about
answer, Mayor, is
that.
sure, I'll be happy to.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's good.
I didn't-
Deb, we have some mail. Would you like to read?
Yes, sir, we do. The first one is from Diane Sykes, and she writes, please refrain from any topics that require a vote until the public really has the opportunity to hear the commission's input, and the mayor can actually ask the public if they have any pertinent input. At this point, we are not having public meetings. We are listening to commission meetings without public input. The second email we have is from Tracy Eckhart, 109 North Prospect Street. She writes, it has been 2 months since the city manager announced that he had arranged for us to have our much needed new website. 1 month ago, I asked when information such as code enforcement, planning and zoning, CRA, and the city charter would be restored to the new website. I still have no answer, and this information is still not available online. This is an example of how our city operations work ineffectively and inefficiently. Our city leaders must have a plan in using our tax dollars. If we do not have a plan to make basic information available on the website, no wonder we have no strategic plan for our defective infrastructure. The water main on North Prospect Street has been laying exposed in front of my property for months. I have made this information known, yet the only thing that has occurred is that the Public Works Department came and spray painted the 1.5 inch pipe blue. It is not a typo that I wrote 1.5 inches. The 8-inch water main that feeds the South Prospect ends at Central Avenue. The result of this is extremely poor water pressure and no fire hydrants on North Prospect. Yet my water bill is exactly the same as other taxpayers in this town that have excellent water pressure and nearby access to fire hydrants. If the city manager is unable to plan and maintain basic information and operations, then it is mandatory that the elected officials that oversee his work create a strategic plan for our future and act on it immediately. That concludes the public comment. Thank you.
Okay. What about the one from Pamela Ash? Well, I guess that's what it is. She asked me to put on the agenda and address the issue of the fireworks display at Dexter. So that is on the agenda.
You want to read her letter about
Sure.
the camera? Do you
I'll
want
read
me
the
to
whole-
read it? Go ahead.
To the Board of Crescent City Commissioners, I'm making a request to be put on the agenda to address fireworks display at Dexter Beach rather, also known as Lake Stella. My second request is about a surveillance camera that's directly in front of my home at 322 East Grand Rondo. The intrusiveness as well as voyeurism and my rights as a property owner to privacy without being monitored 24/7. Thank you. And that's sincerely Pamela Ash at the 322 East Grand Rondo. And I think Chief is going to address this. The Chief and I had talked about that. Chief, we can just add this to your report.
Yes, sir. We can do
Okay.
it then, or now,
Yeah.
whatever you like.
Okay, so these two items will be talked about tonight. So thank you, Pamela, for emailing us. All right. Let me get through my mail here. I got fans running here, so stuff's blowing around. All right, going on to general business now, the resolution R20-04 announcing 2020 election. And
Okay.
Ms. DeVito.
Yeah. We take, okay. Resolution R 2004, a resolution of the Commission of the City of Crescent City providing official notice of election to the residents of Crescent City and the supervisor of elections for Putnam County. Whereas the Article 6 of the Charter for the City of Crescent City establishes the time, place, and manner for the election of the City Commission, and whereas pursuant to Section 6.02 of Article 6 of the Charter for the City of Crescent City provides that 2 commission seats designated Group 3 and Group 4 and the seat of Mayor Commissioner shall be up for election the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November 2020. And whereas Section 6.07 requires the commission to provide official notice of the upcoming election at least 45 days prior to the regular election. And whereas it is in keeping with the city charter and the best interest of the citizens of the City of Crescent City to provide this official notice of election sooner than required by the charter to allow time for the supervisor of elections, city staff, and the citizens to prepare for the upcoming election. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Commission of the City of Crescent City that 1, Supervisor of Elections for Putnam County is hereby placed on official notice of the upcoming general election for the seats of Group 3 and Group 4 and the seat of Mayor Commissioner of the City of Crescent City. 2, such general election shall take place on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020 at the Putnam County Office Annex at 115 North Summit Street, Crescent City, Florida, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Absentee ballots shall be issued in advance in accordance with the general laws of Florida. 3, all persons seeking to become candidates for the seats of Group 3 and Group 4 and the seat of Mayor Commissioner shall submit his or her qualification statement to the city manager no sooner than August 3rd, 2020 at 12 noon and no later than August 7th, 2020 at 12 noon. Approved and adopted by the City Commission of the City of Crescent City at its regular meeting assembled this 9th day of July 2020.
All right.
So there
Thank
we
you.
go.
Do we have a motion?
I
So
move that,
moved. Go ahead.
second,
I move that we accept resolution 2004.
second.
All those that approve say aye.
Aye.
Those that disapprove say no. And it's unanimous. Thank you.
Right.
Resolution, this is the one Commissioner West is going to read. Resolution number R20-06.
I have a short issue before I get started.
Yes,
Look
ma'am.
at the first sentence under where the typing is smaller, whereas the commissioners of the City of Crescent City, Florida is required. I believe that should be are required because commissioners is plural. Am I correct?
Where are you, Judy?
Look at under the reading of the resolution where it says, whereas the commissioners of the City of Crescent City, Florida is required, but you're talking commissioners, which is plural, should be are required. Commissioners are required.
And is this the revised one? Oh,
This would be, I'm sorry, 20-05.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. You done throw me off. I'm looking for 6.
Yeah.
6.
I don't think we have 6.
oh, okay, where's,
What was said?
I'm sorry, the millage, okay.
Do
Here we
you
go.
have that?
Judy is right. Yes, it's 05. We're doing the millage and she's right.
Right.
The very first line, I believe she's absolutely correct, should be an R.
Right. Okay, I'm going to read it that way. Resolution number 20-05, a resolution of the Commission of the City of Crescent City, Florida, setting the maximum millage for submitting the DR 420 certification of taxable value and for developing the budget for the tax year 2020. Whereas the commissioners of the city of Crescent City, Florida are required to set the maximum millage in order to submit it DR 420 certification of taxable value with the Florida Department of Revenue by the August 4, 2020 deadline. And whereas the setting the millage at 8.5914 at this juncture will prevent the city commission from being able to adopt a higher millage during budget hearings in September 2020, but will not prevent them from eventually adopting a lower millage. Now therefore, be it resolved by the City Commission of the City of Crescent City that there is hereby established a millage rate of 8.5914 mils per $1,000 of taxable value for the purpose of submitting the DR 420 certification of taxable value by the August 4, 2020 deadline, approved by the City Commission of the City of Crescent City this 9th day of July, 2020.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we, resolution number 2005.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Mayor, I have an issue that I would like to bring up just so that we can talk about it, not necessarily to make a change. Am I recognized?
You are recognized.
Great. I brought this up with the city manager earlier this week. It's my understanding that about a third of our city revenue comes from our property tax. The rest of it is combination of sales tax and other revenues. We do not know at this time what other revenue is going to be like. The information I have, you may have better information. The information I've seen from the League of Cities says that revenue sharing from the state is going to be reduced for certain months, blah, blah, blah. I'm not in favor of raising taxes, but should we give ourselves the option of raising our millage in the event of an unforeseen circumstance where we might need additional revenue? And I'm talking about this as an emergency procedure. So I brought this up with the city manager. I don't know anyone else's thoughts on this. I certainly would think of that as a last resort. But I'm very concerned, just that we, I don't know, we be prepared for eventualities.
I believe somewhere in the past, as we've discussed this is the top of what we can. Help me out here, somebody that knows.
Yeah, we are just, I'm
Are
not
we-
sure what the top number is, but we are very
But I
close
think
to it.
we're very, very much there.
Top number is 10.
And is the
That's-
top.
Right, that's what I asked. And I asked also, I haven't had time to do the math. Math is not my strong suit. I don't know exactly how much money, we would raise if we went to the 10 mil cap. It's not a desirable thing to do, but this is a very unusual situation. So I'm just asking us to consider, should we give ourselves the option as a very outside eventuality? I do not even know what other cities are doing. I see Mr. Asbury on the screen.
Yes, ma'am. When you set the millage, it's set. You can go down, you can't go up.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Should we give ourselves the flexibility to go up to the 10 mil cap, or would it not make enough difference to count? And I'm talking about to address an emergency of funds, given that apparently right now we have no good idea of how our other revenues are going to be affected for the next few months or the next year.
I don't know, Mr. Vito, what our total evaluations in the city are right now.
Right.
It used to It used to, you could talk in terms of in the range of $40,000 to $50,000, I believe, per meal.
Right.
So I don't know if that's accurate now or not. You don't want to ask me what I think about raising the millage. I've always felt, I mean, I know there's people, and I don't know how politically feasible or unfeasible it is because I really don't study the politics of town.
Right.
I've always thought that we should be getting as much tax money as we could off the ad valorem, even though it would cost me, because of the fact the letter from Miss Tracy points out a lot of deficiencies in town. Unfortunately, she's totally off the mark in throwing that blame on our new city manager. But we do have 50-year-old infrastructure. We do have old pipes that were laid in the 50s. We do have inch and a quarter pipes where there should maybe be 3 or 4. I mean, there's lots of things that we could use the money on. And yes, you're right. I don't think anybody knows where we're going to end up on the revenue side. I don't know what this has done to our economy statewide. I don't know if they know, if the state people know exactly yet, but we very well could come up with a shortfall. And it's my understanding, and I stand corrected if I'm off base, but it's my understanding that when we set the millage, we
Right.
cannot go up.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, we do have reserves if we
Yes.
did have a shortfall. Home values are going up, which brings money in. Although it's my understanding that the businesses are where we get a lot of the tax revenue that might be down this year. But the economy's been doing fairly well since earlier this year. I think if we have an unanticipated shortfall, we have reserves. So
Okay.
I think at this time we should adopt the resolution as written.
Okay.
I'm with that. I don't want to even talk about raising the tax.
I just wanted to raise the issue since it's an irrevocable decision. I want to make sure we discuss it. It's not my preference. If we have that bad of a downturn, that would be a last resort to raise taxes. It would not necessarily be a great solution anyway. But just put
People would
forward.
be hurting too. So
Good.
Yeah.
Bingo. So, all right, that's all I have. And
Commissioner
Mayor,
Banks, would you like to make a motion?
comment on that. I
Yes,
think
sir.
we got money. I think we got money in reserve to
Right.
take care.
fact.
We just gonna have to walk a close line in our budget.
Yep.
If we have to, yeah.
Exactly. All right, so I think we have a motion and a second, right?
Well,
We're ready.
We do.
Commissioner Banks, do we have a motion?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And
We have motion and a second.
Who's the
I
second?
had a
Second.
comment. I had a
Okay.
comment. There's nothing further.
Excuse me, who was the second?
I was Judy.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Thank you. All right. Redevelopment coordinator job description. And Michael, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So last meeting, we talked about me coming up with a job description for what CRA coordinator, I titled it, and this is a draft, is a redevelopment coordinator. And I say redevelopment coordinator because you talk about redevelopment, you talk about CRA development, you talk about economic development, they're all kind of intertwined. This was a sort of comprehensive job description of what all of the duties that someone would do for that role. While it says redevelopment coordinator, their primary, as it reads in here, their primary function would be CRA coordinator. Doing reporting, doing meetings, things like that. I did talk to everybody about this. Like I said, it's a draft. I envision, I don't, the question we got all the time was, well, how many hours we have budgeted, and I think there was a miscommunication somewhere where someone said it was 10,000. We budgeted $20,000 for this.
10,000, yes.
8,000.
And it's split out over the 3 CRA areas. I think start with the job description, see what we can get. I don't know exactly if we're going to get somebody. We want to have somebody that's seasoned in this. You really want to have somebody that has a background in this, in the financing part of it, in the preparation, in the economic development, as I spoke with Commissioner Vito, having a historic background, historic preservation and things like that. So, and marketing, they got to hit a whole bunch of different points for it to be effective for us. If we're going to spend the energy to get somebody, they need to have the experience and the knowledge to do it. Questions?
Well, let me just go with Michael. As you and I, what you and I talked about, I don't think we can afford somebody full-time. This would be per job, per task. And just let me go over some numbers here. For CRA, the city kicks in $52,000, the county $58,000. We come up with $111,000 per year coming. Roughly, these are rough numbers, and we have an existing $174,000 balance in the CRA, as my understanding. And I think there is a percentage that can be spent on administrative. I'm not sure what that number is, but we want to make sure that we hit that target.
And for clarity on that, this would be a part-time position, a contract position, not a full-time employee.
Right.
So we'd be, 1099 paying them.
Right, and Mayor, you bring up a good issue. Am I recognized, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You bring up a good issue about the percent spent on administration. And actually, I'm looking at the monthly budget reports. There's a $40,000 item of money spent from the CRA budgets. I don't know what it was spent for, but it's my understanding that some of the CRA budget already goes to some administrative costs of the city staff for time that they spend on the CRA. So that is an interesting point, and I don't know what the limitation is on spending on administration.
Yeah, let's find that out, Michael. I know who would know. Patrick's probably yelling at his monitor right now. He probably knows the number. We'll find that out. I like the job description.
It looks like a year full-time employee.
Yeah, but we're not going to be able to do that. I don't.
No, I know, but it's pretty full.
Yep, it is.
Well, we basically going to have to get a semi-retired person for this job.
You hope, yeah.
I hope they're out there.
Or another option, and I've discussed this with everybody, is maybe there's a firm out there that has somebody that can designate it for that, for that amount, because it is not a full-time position.
Just like a law firm, you charge the hours to a particular task, whether it's the Central Avenue project or what it might be. So that's something that we'll have to work out when we get there. But as far as the job description, I like it. Good job, Michael.
Yeah, very good job. I like that myself.
But Mayor, if I could.
Yes.
I also thought it was very fine job description, and the one item that I just would like to emphasize more under education and experience is that there is a preference for someone with specific economic development in a historic preservation setting, because most of the central CRA historic preservation is essential to that. So I really would like us to specifically say preferred economic development experience in a historic preservation setting, because some people have it and some people don't. And I think that would be important. I don't want somebody to come in and
Well,
say,
if, I
you
think
know-
we're going to be looking at, we're probably going to pick the candidate, so we'll look at that at that time. But you're saying if it advertised that should be in there?
yes, that we have a preference, because we are a historic town. We have a historic district.
Yep.
And I think we would do better to fish for someone with specific economic development experience in a historic
Okay.
preservation setting.
All right.
Because, there's people who just work with different types of areas.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments on that?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I have a public comment on this subject.
Go ahead.
Okay, this comment comes from Diane Sykes, and she writes, per the agenda, I have the following comment. Since the public cannot provide feedback during the meeting, I would like to take the opportunity now to object to the idea of adding administrator of Main Street project, should we decide to move forward with this, to the job description for the CRA for the following reasons. One, per the presentation, Main Street should be organized by and for business by local businesses or concerned individuals, not by city management or a paid consultant for the city. Since the approval of $10,000 for a CRA consultant was approved for this year, but not necessarily an ongoing line item expense for the CRA, if we do not fund this every year, then we lose the Main Street coordinator. If we are nominating for this position, I would nominate Michelle Myers because of her community interest and business background. That concludes the comments.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Any other comment before moving on?
Yes, Mayor, one little clarification.
Yep.
On, as far as Ms. Sykes' comments, something about we shouldn't include the possibility of having this position handle Main Street. I think it's a misconception that government should have nothing to do with, that's not exactly accurate. The government should have nothing to do with Main Street, and we don't even know if we're going to apply, and we wouldn't apply till 2021. But I did attend the webinar by the Department of State this week, where they had a presentation on the application requirements, and it is very typical for government is partners with business. Business doesn't do it alone, and government doesn't do it alone, but it's a definite partnership. You have to have a resolution. It is very common for a Main Street program to be housed in a CRA. So that is very typical. So I just want to add that for commissioners' information and the general public.
Thank you. You know what? I skipped over proclamations on item 5. So let me, before I move on to the next item, let me do that, get that out of the way. Resolution number R20-06. You guys all have this in your packet. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Crescent City, Florida, providing for recommended indoor use of face coverings in response to continued spread of coronavirus disease in 2019. Whereas on March 13th, 2020, the President Donald J. Trump issued a proclamation declaring a national emergency concerning coronavirus disease 2019, also known as COVID-19. And whereas on March 1st, 2020, Governor Ron DeSantis issued Executive Order number 20-51 declaring a public health emergency in the state of Florida due to the spread of COVID-19. And whereas based on recent information and data from the Florida Department of Health and the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Putnam County and Crescent City has increased significantly since additional reopenings were authorized under phase 2 of the governor's plan for Florida's recovery, which increase may result in additional deaths. And whereas in response to the dramatic increase in COVID-19 cases, the Florida Medical Association, the state's largest physicians organization, encourages all local officials to adopt regulations requiring individuals to wear face coverings in public places. And whereas the United States Center of Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, has expressly found that COVID-19 spreads mainly from person to person through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or talks. These droplets can land on the mouth or noses of people who are nearby or possibly be inhaled into the lungs. Studies and evidence on infection control report that these droplets usually travel around 6 feet, about 2 arm lengths. And whereas the CDC therefore specifically recommends that as businesses and communities reopen and people resume their daily activities, people should wear face coverings to slow the spread of COVID-19, particularly in public settings where the social distancing measures are difficult to maintain. And whereas the City Commission of Crescent City finds that it is in the best interest of the public health, safety, and general welfare that the following be adopted consistent with the requirements of Section 166.021 Florida statutes. Therefore, be it resolved by the City Commission of the City of Crescent City, Florida. A, implores every person working, living, visiting, or doing business in Crescent City to wear a face covering in any indoor location other than their home or residence when not maintaining social distancing from other persons, excluding family members or companions. B, nothing herein shall require or allow a person to wear a face covering so as to conceal the identity of the wearer in violation of Chapter 876 Florida statutes. And C, encourages all businesses to prohibit entry of any person who is not wearing a face covering, with the exception of those listed persons below. Nothing herein shall, exceptions are rather, nothing herein shall be require the wearing of face covering by the following people. A, persons under the age of 2 years, persons observing social distancing in accordance with CDC guidelines, and persons whom a face covering would cause impairment due to an existing health condition, and persons working in a business or profession who maintain social distancing from another person. F, persons working in a business or profession where the use of a face covering would prevent them from performing the duties of the business or profession. And G, persons exercising while maintaining social distancing. And H, persons eating or drinking, and public safety, fire, and other life safety and healthcare personnel as their personal activity, protective equipment. Let me start that again. Public safety, fire, and other life safety and healthcare personnel as their personal protective equipment requirements will be governed by their respective agencies. And J, the requirement shall not apply when a person who is hearing impaired needs to see the mouth of someone who's wearing a face covering in order to communicate. And K, the requirement does not apply to any outdoor activity permitted under city, county, or state order, but face coverings should be readily available when coming within 6 feet of an individual not part of a person's immediate family or cohabitating living unit. It goes on with some others with infants and so on. The resolution shall become effective July 10th, 2020 at 12:01 a.m. That's after midnight tonight. This resolution shall remain in effect in the city of Crescent City for so long as Governor Ron DeSantis' executive order declaring a public health emergency is in the state of Florida is in effect or unless otherwise modified or repealed. Approved and adopted by the City Commission of the City of Crescent City, Florida, this 9th day of July, 2020.
Mayor,
Yes,
how are
ma'am.
we going to require this?
Well, we don't have an ability to fine people like some others. So we strongly implore people to exercise social distancing, wash their hands, wear a mask if you are within that
Right.
6 foot distance.
Right.
And we also are asking businesses to enforce this in their own businesses. That's going to be up to them, and we are strongly advising them to do this.
But the verbiage says require, and listen, we wear masks everywhere outside this house. And I totally agree with you, but there are going to be some people who are not going to do it, even though the national and the state and the county and the city are asking everyone to do this. They're just not going to.
You know, when I go up to Palaca, some people aren't driving 60 miles an hour. Some of them are
Right.
driving 70 or 75.
So I'm saying, we're saying it's required, but we can't, and
Where is the word required? I recall jumping over that.
you use required.
I recall reading that. Where did we? Anyone put their finger on it?
B, but that's not really relevant. I have a big,
Mayor, I have observation here about the switch between imploring and encouraging and requirement that I'm observing. I think I know what Judy's talking about. You want me to just,
Go ahead.
I just don't want us in the very near future, people really fussing and
Well,
whatever. We've got enough fussing going on.
You know, I lifted this from Terrell Hill's, Mayor Hill's proclamation up there in Palaca. And
Right. well, right.
Also, so Michael has looked at it, and Jay Asbury, our attorney, has looked at it, and it seemed to pass muster.
I don't have
We
any
did make some
problems
changes.
with it. I don't have any problems with it. I just think saying it's required, some people just won't.
But, well, Mayor, I think the only difference is verbiage. What it seems y'all changed from Mayor Hill's ordinance or whatever resolution that they adopted. In A and C, you have non-mandatory wording of implore and encourage. Then when you get down to who it doesn't apply to,
That's probably,
I see then the words requirement, which
Right.
Judy's saying it might give the same impression. I mean, the actual wording says implore and encourage to the individuals and businesses. But then there's the word requirement, which you're really making a recommendation.
I think where the word required is that it's not required.
Well, it's a recommendation.
Yeah,
But, I
right.
mean,
Okay, that's fine with me. I have one more item to just say.
yes,
Is
ma'am.
there any way we can print this up on a legal piece of paper, you know, something really long like this one? And your computer can put a border around it and put this in. And I've talked to the mayor, when you sign it big and bold. And let's print that up and put them in all our businesses.
Well, do we need a motion for this, Mayor?
We do.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm happy to, I'm not sure I have the right version with the paper flying around, but I'm happy to move resolution number R20-06.
I'm happy to second it.
All right, great.
And then,
But now we need to get the word out. Cause,
Well, I think if they can post it on the door or the window as people are coming in, this is one way to see it. And like
Someone
I said,
sent me a picture tonight of Target or something. It had a sign in the window. It's got to be slow. I mean, short and sweet. It
Right.
can't be, you know.
it can't be
like
all
this.
that wordage.
oh, right. All that.
But put it on a piece of paper, put
Well,
the border
that's up to the
around.
businesses. Now we could do
Yep.
something similar in our own offices.
And
here
put
at
it
City
in the
Hall.
newspaper.
But we have a proper motion and a proper second. Any further discussion?
Mayor, I have a comment about this. For one, I want to commend you for putting this together.
I'll
Two,
second that.
right, two, personally, I don't have any problem making it an absolute requirement. I don't care if we're not able to find people. I think that it would give businesses more authority to enforce the requirement. I think they would be more likely to ask people to leave. I am all for that. And, you know, we have to observe the cases rising, and the additional death that occurred today was in Crescent City of an elderly person. And it's my understanding, per the Palatka Daily News, that unfortunately, with their best efforts, this virus has reached the staff and the residents of Lakewood Nursing Center, which breaks my heart.
Well,
Yes, bad.
Yes, I've heard that also.
if we can get back to the
Right.
motion and second.
I'm saying I support it.
You can open discussion on it, John, your mayor.
If you have more to add, please go ahead.
Yeah, but I think it needs to be open for discussion before commission, each commissioner should be able to discuss it. Cause I think it's a good idea. Cause I was gonna talk about that in the commission, city commissioners, my time to talk, because we did get, I got an email, and I think all of you got an email from one of our citizens in Crescent City. And I want to elaborate on it some more, because when they say Crescent City, I don't know whether that's the true figure of Crescent City or not. Cause Crescent City zip code.
Well, the border goes all the way to the county line and all the way out to Willaca. So it's not
Right.
just our city limits.
Well, I asked the
Postmaster.
EOC and Mary Garcia last week, and Michael was in on the meeting, and I asked that specific question: how many are infected here in the town? And I could not get an answer, and they were not going to give us an answer. So that's where we are with the EOC.
I really don't think they know the answer, because they going by the zip code.
Well, they do, but when they do tracing and so on, they know where these people work, they know where they live.
I think that though, just to add to what you're talking about, whether we know
sir.
the numbers or not, the most important message, like you're doing with this proclamation, is that people need to take some precautions, an ounce of prevention. They need to wear their masks. Okay. And I think whether we do or we don't have a spike here, we will if people don't take it seriously.
And maybe this is just 90% there and not 100% of
Right.
what you would have put in there, but it's an improvement of not doing anything. So
Right.
I agree.
Do we want to change the verbiage to required? Like Lisa was asking?
I purposely didn't put required in there because we do not have that authority.
I understand that.
Jay, would you like to opine on that?
Well, my opinion on that issue is, so many times people rush to pass some laws, but if you can't enforce them or are not going to enforce them, it's useless effort on all of our parts. If you want to make it some type of law, we'll write an ordinance that they have to and put penalties in there. But the chief, I know his 4 or 5 people's got plenty to do. Rather than
it can't be our police department. It can't be enforced. That's what I was talking about.
And that's what I mean. Is it wise to put a requirement or a mandatory situation out there when there is no way to make it stick? What the mayor, the way I look at it is, we are imploring, we're begging people to please do the right thing. But as someone else pointed out, one of you folks earlier, if you have any responsibility in your bones at all, you're going to try to protect yourself and those you care about. I had to run in Winn-Dixie tonight because I knew I was gonna be late getting back over here, and I wanted to get some of Winn-Dixie's fried chicken before I left Crescent City. And probably 75, 80% of the people in there had masks on. But there was 10 or 20% of the people that didn't have a mask, didn't plan on being a mask, and were laughing and cutting up with the people around them. So, I mean.
And on their phone, and you're right.
I
It's
just don't-
always like that.
I just don't see how you make irresponsible people responsible unless there's some kind of punishment. That's just my thoughts. I think what y'all have done is sufficient, unless you want to go to a step further and say we're going to spank people that don't do what we tell them to do.
I don't think we have the manpower to do that.
I think we need to let it stay like the mayor got it drawn up.
Yeah.
I think.
I just, do we need to take that word required out that's further down in the resolution?
Well, my suggestion was where it says requirement, which I think is a repeat, it should be
Right.
recommendation, because
Right.
that's really what we're doing.
Right,
That sounds like the right word for it.
Right. We changed it at the top, and Judy's saying change it at the bottom.
right.
Make it consistent all the way.
Make it consistent throughout.
Yeah.
But it means the same thing.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I made the motion. That's fine with me to make the wording consistent throughout, where it says requirement to make it recommendation, but it's the mayor's resolution.
That's an amendment to the motion, and we have to vote on the amendment first. And that is to change the verbiage. And where is this on? It's 2 pages long here in small type. So where is it you're seeing this?
Well, there's the word require in B, therefore be it resolved B, but I don't read that as a.
Requirement of wearing the net mask.
And then I saw require, but it was used in the same context, I thought.
Well, I'm not sure which version I have, but I think the one, Judy, can you say where you see it, like what the paragraph number is? I think it's where it applies to the hearing impaired and outdoor activity.
I don't have that in front of me. I'm so sorry. I was trying to print it off this afternoon and it would not print. That's the only thing I don't have.
You're talking about J and K, where it talks
Right.
about the requirement.
J-
the requirement.
Yeah.
Right,
J.
what I have is J and K. It's a little bit inconsistent because we're imploring and recommending, and J and K use the terms requirement.
Required.
Just make
And I
it
think in
we'll just
J
say-
and K, recommend, it would be better to say recommendation,
Mhm.
is what Judy's saying.
Right.
Sounds fine.
And I mean, I can just accept that as a friendly amendment. I can accept it.
Well, what the merchant's gonna put on their front door, that's what's gonna count.
Right. Well, we'll change it.
All right. So is there a motion to amend resolution R20-02 to remove the words requirement and to insert the words
Recommendation.
Recommendation. I so move.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and for the main motion that is still on the floor, and that is passing it with that amendment that has passed resolution R20-06. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. Now we're going to jump down to
Do we have a-
8D, I believe. That was what was tabled from last month. Commission meeting policy from me, and you should have that letter from last month. You know, if I can just expand on my thinking at the time, and that is, it's not to cut off or shorten the topics, but encourage people to get to the point and not just to speak. So, you know, we can not summarize what somebody else says or something. We can just get to the point. And 5 minutes is a long time, and 2 minutes is a long time, and it goes around, and you get a turn to speak again for 2 minutes until everyone has spoken, and then nobody else is talking. So it's not like you've got 2 minutes and then you're cut off like a speaker would be at the regular commission meeting. So that was my thinking behind it, to try to speed things up a little bit, because we've been having over 3-hour meetings consistently on agendas that really weren't that busy.
My only issue is that we give the commissioners plenty of time to speak on this. Sometimes, well, let me use this as an example. Commissioner Banks brings up something. I've already spoken, my time is over, but I want to enhance what he said a little. So I just don't want to be cut off, so that doesn't happen. So you can't, I want everything to be brought out and we don't cut something off because we're trying to make a shorter meeting. I think when we do that, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. We're going to have a problem getting everything out. We need to discuss it all, and we need to have all the information so we can make the best decisions.
I don't think that changes any of that. And one thing I changed, let me finish here, a year ago, whatever it was, where you were recognized to speak, because quite often, let's say Commissioner Banks and Commissioner West have a back and forth conversation that's going on, and then the subject changes slightly, and then you're on to almost another topic, where maybe I'm waiting to speak, and what I wanted to speak on has already passed. So that's why,
you're thinking this will stop that.
Well, in other words, let's say, you getting back to that same example, let's say Commissioner Banks gets done making a statement and you want to answer him, but Commissioner DeVito wants to give her 2 cents on that while we're on that particular point, and then go back to you and you can finish your point. So, I mean, I think that has helped that implementing being recognized, so that
I don't have any problems with being recognized.
Commissioner Banks.
Mayor, the only problem I have with your policy, I don't think you should put minutes on a commissioner. The people appoint us for this position, and when they come to us, if it takes 5 minutes to get something over to the rest of the commission, I think that's what we need to do. Now, I have nothing to do with the rest of the policy, but governing the commissioner, I think that is totally out of line with your policy. Nothing against you, but it's just out of line. Because if somebody from this city, and I'm gonna talk about that later on, somebody from this city come to me with an issue, and it gonna take me long in 2 minutes, I'm not just gonna get up and filibuster just to kill time.
Right.
But I really want to get the point over, and it might take more than 2 minutes.
Well,
so that's why I'm not going to vote for nothing going to stop me from getting my point over.
It's a guide, but if you have a topic, it's 5 minutes, and we have a 2-minute limit on public speaking, and I think one time in my 3.5 years being here, did we ever actually? They were over it by leaps and bounds. Did we have a speaker removed? So I've never really cut somebody off, even though they were, if you're on topic and speaking to the issue, it's really a guide just to make sure you just don't, run around all the ball field.
But, Mayor, if I might,
DeVito.
I understand that the last 2 meetings have gone long. They've both involved presentations. I think that it's important that we're cognizant of the time, but I don't think this is the way to do it. Limiting the ability of commissioners to respond to each other. This says that we're going to talk in turn going down the line. I think we have some issues with people talking and not being recognized, and that includes both the public as well as the commissioners. My husband's pointed out to me that sometimes you have to wait for the commissioners to finish talking. I think that's something that we can work on. I personally have observed members of the public going over 2 minutes, the allotted 2 minutes as well. Sometimes in meetings, members of the public do stand up and talk without really being recognized, or, I mean, they just talk. We have meetings where people just talk and they're not necessarily told to wait their turn. So I think there are tools that we can use from Robert's rules that address making things timely. I've been told I talk too much. I'll try to work on that. But under Robert's rules, you can always call a point of order. You can call the question if you think there's been enough discussion on the issue and that's not debatable. You can call the question, and also for a particular issue, you can vote to limit discussion. We have a lot of tools at our disposal. I think that Robert's rules are a time-tested way to do this, and we should try to use those because this, I agree with Commissioner West. I think this is going to cause us a few more problems than you might anticipate. So I think we should be mindful of our time and see if we can shorten the meetings by being mindful of our time. And I would point out that we are discussing this without a motion on the floor, actually. So, but I am really not in favor of this. I think it's going to cause more problems than it would solve. And I think there are other things that we can do, and I'm happy to work on them. I have some suggestions. And one of them is just to use the tools of Robert's rules.
Mayor,
Commissioner West?
I didn't finish, but that's okay. Lisa's brought up because Robert's rules of order are what I think we should use also. So I'm going to go along with that. I just feel like this is going to get us in some trouble. And I appreciate you trying to work on this and make some things perhaps a little easier, a little faster. But I just don't agree with this policy.
All right, let's move on. I'm not going to ask for a motion. General business.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Wait a minute. Yeah, hold on. Yes.
We do have a public comment on this subject.
Yes, ma'am.
This this comes from Linda Young, and her comment reads, discussions become too long and too personal and not necessarily representative of the citizens. It is like beating a dead horse in hopes you get people to eventually give in. If it is not something that requires a vote, much of it should be handled with the city manager before the meeting. Also, punctuation and typing errors need to be discussed with the proper person before the meeting. That does not need the whole commission to be involved, and it is rude. These lengthy meetings are turning people off. That concludes the public comment.
Okay. Thank you. 10A, city manager, you have your report?
I do. So I'll start talking about the projects we have, give you a status update on all of them. First one is the CDBG grant number 18. That was the Harry Banks Park improvements, and the 2 repavement. The only thing we have, we're at closeout right now. I'm waiting on them to replace 2 dead trees. I don't want to sign off on the final thing until we get the contract. So we're going back and forth with the contractor trying to get that settled, and then we can close that out. The other one is the Central Avenue repavement project. And right now they're FDOT is finalizing their 100% design. And next week we'll be going out for the construction engineering inspection services for that project. The next one is the multi-use project that we see around town. They are finishing up, they're pouring their concretes. We've got a couple of, they have that one change order they're working on. They're doing some putting in some sod and some things like that over the next couple of weeks. They've ordered materials that they're waiting. It'll take probably 3 or 4 weeks. And then I anticipate the job, once some of those change orders are taken care of, that we should be completed shortly. Last one on projects. One of the ones on Colbert, we talked about water, providing water out there. We're just waiting. I've been working with our public works director on getting some prices for fountains. We've gotten some really high prices just to provide that out there. So I think I've got a line on one that's reasonable. And as soon as we can get that and secure it, we will put that in. And it shouldn't take that long. We have to run a water line and a meter. So once that's done, I'll report on that.
Mike,
Yeah.
I think we already have a water line out there, just tapped off, right?
They just need to tap it off there. That's really what it was. Thank you for the
It
correction.
needs a meter.
It just needs a meter, and they'll tap it and they'll go right out there.
Now, is that a
Okay.
spigot or a fountain or?
No, a fountain.
Okay.
Have you found a metal fountain?
I've actually found a concrete fountain.
Okay.
Once again, I was talking about, we priced them out and some of them were, thousands of dollars. And I think I've got one that's reasonable. I just have to touch base with
Okay.
our public works director.
That sounds good.
Okay. Bids. So we had 2 bids. One was for the demo of 105 Cypress, that building, the old Met building. I had some questions. We got a lot of feedback at this time. We got a lot of interest in companies looking to bid on it. They did have some questions, which that meant that I issued an addendum to answer some of those questions. So we've extended the time to the end of the month. And I believe we will get earnest bidders this time on the project.
That's the clinic.
That's the clinic building, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So the second one is the ball field lights. So we put the bid out for the ball field lights. I've got 4 or 5 companies that did ask questions or had some questions about it. As far as lights, they said they would not bid on it only because they bid on light renovations at a certain dollar amount, that they want to install new concrete poles. They should be a certain height, and they're talking about $250,000 and up. I said our budget is not there. I did get a bid that came in after the date, after the time that it was supposed to be in. I said I will re-advertise. I'll do the same thing next week, and we should get a bidder. We should get a bidder after the deadline came. I did get a couple of other companies call me, so I expect we'll be getting some good bids or good proposals from those people.
When do the bids close on that?
Which one? No, I closed. I had already closed it.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to reopen it, re-advertise it, and I'm only going to give them a couple of weeks. They pretty much know what's out there.
Okay. Hopefully good news next month.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah,
ahead.
I do. I've got more.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right. Am I under a limit? I wasn't
Yeah.
part of it.
You're up, you're done.
Okay.
Chief, can you go hauling away?
That's a bad joke. Keep going.
Right.
So one of the things they talked about, and I heard public comment, as mentioned before, there are a lot of utility issues. We have an aging infrastructure as far as utility goes. We do have low sizes. We've got some inconsistencies throughout the system. So to address that, one of the things I've been working on, I met last week with our engineering consultant, and we talked about getting a master utility plan, a CIP plan, a capital improvement plan for the whole system. And the approach that we're taking is we get the whole system. What would it take to upgrade the whole system to provide better services, to provide longer lasting infrastructure in places, and to upgrade what we have? So they were working with me. We've had conversations. We will continue over the next several weeks to kind of put that together. And the idea is then to kind of focus on an area and say, this is a priority. We'll prioritize them so that we can attack it in small little bits and then go for funding. So like state revolving funding is something that we'll work on through DEP that can get covered.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
You still have the floor.
I do. So Also, we talked about the website, as I said before, and I don't want to beat it, we're slowly adding things to the website. I've added one of the things, and I'll combine two things. One of the things on the website is we got the 2019 water report. Everything looks good. We posted it on there. It's been posted here at City Hall. And anybody can take a look and download that if they want. We've talked about COVID-19. We've talked about future meetings. One of the things that City Attorney Asbury and I have talked about is, it was brought up earlier, how we're going to handle future meetings, especially quasi-judicial meetings. So we've been calling other municipalities, seeing how they do it, so we can kind of comply and make sure we get proper input and things like that. So we are working on that. We're trying to figure it out now because of COVID and because of the spike in numbers and things like that. What else did I have? Medians. I bring it up every month. We are working on the medians. I met with DOT representative last week, and I met with our DOT representative, their company that they have doing inspections, and our public works director. And we were kind of outlining a couple of things, and we're trying to take it a step process between medians and trees and irrigation and things. So we're working towards that. I think that's all I had, other than whatever we're going to talk about scheduling and things like that. So,
Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner
this is,
West.
yes, this is towards Michael. Michael, last meeting you said that we had to address the water issue in the medians. Where is that in the process?
that's the main focus that I have right now.
Yes.
Is water in the medians, because I told that DOT, we can put the prettiest things we have. We could spend $1 million. We could spend $10. It's going to be wasted if we don't address
Can't
it.
water it.
We're trying to isolate the problem and then have a contractor come in and kind of give us an estimate of where we're at with that. But once again, that's in the bigger picture of trying to get somebody to handle it all. Because we're going to need,
Okay.
irrigation is going to take ongoing maintenance.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Esposito?
But I have a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just going to take it from the top. Harry Banks Park, which is almost done. You mentioned there's 2 dead trees.
Mm-hmm.
So when we voted to approve this grant, we said that any landscaping should be covered by the CDBG grant. I'm assuming that that's what happened, that we did not spend city general funds to put in the trees. Is that correct?
No, I covered that at the last meeting. The trees that were put in there, those were extra funds. We did extra guardrail and we did some drainage improvements.
Okay, I'm sorry, might not have heard that. Might have been the meeting before last. The multi-use project. All right, Colbert Park, water for the fountains, bids, demo Cypress, ball field lights. Okay, ball field lights. So in the bid document, do you have a projected completion time? You know, I think we're, the Pop Warner folks are hoping, you know, would like to see lights. Is that part of the bid document, that it would be, you know, hopefully completed by the change to daylight saving time or whenever it gets dark?
It should be. There's how long the bid is good for. There's not a, you need to complete this in 30 days. I think that's unrealistic, but there will be a time element when they get going for this.
Okay, and you think it's still realistic if you can get a contractor to get it done?
We'll put one caveat. In the middle of COVID, like I've seen with other projects and bids, we've had personnel, we've had some companies have personnel to bid on these things or to show up or to take care of some projects that we've had. Other than that, I don't anticipate this being a long project.
Right.
Because we're talking about putting up new lights on top of poles and running electric.
Right.
So,
well, sorry, I was just going to say multi-use trail seems to be clipping along. Then also my question about, you said you're working with a consultant on the aging infrastructure issue. So what is the cost to that? And-
Nothing for the consultation. The cost is, this is Midtower and Associates. We've been using them for a really long time. They help us along with another company with securing grants and doing engineering. So the cost is nothing.
Okay, so this is no charge.
Correct.
Got that part. And then on the North Prospect issue with the exposed water line and the one that Tracy Eckhart brought up in the 100 block of North Prospect, and she mentioned a fire hydrant. Is there a possibility that that particular block can be addressed and that hydrant can be addressed anytime soon?
It can. We're looking at that, and once again, we're tying that into the sidewalk project. We'd like to get that done, and then we can address all of those issues. Because and the water line issue being close to the top of the soil.
I saw it.
Lack of fire hydrants is another thing that I'm working on with the master plan. We definitely put that on as one of the priorities.
Okay. Then also for the medians, the Trees and Gardens Board made some suggestions for low water options. I know DOT said, I heard in the last meeting that they will not allow us to have just grass. But do they have specific ornamental requirements?
They when I talked to them, they wanted it, they were happy that we were talking to them, one.
Right.
The second thing was they wanted to see what we would propose. They didn't say that we weren't allowed to use anything. Once again, the one thing that they did say was they just didn't want to see all grass.
Right.
So we can take those recommendations and look at, see if we can do that.
Right, because obviously the whole system is expensive and providing the water is expensive.
Correct.
So we did, if you'll look at the recommendations, we did have some, and I understand they want to see some color. And I'm sure the different members of the Tree and Garden Board would be happy to help. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if this fits under the city manager's report or if it fits under commissioner's comments. But I do have a concern about the timeliness of getting materials for the meeting. Is this the time to bring that up?
Why don't we wait until Michael finishes his report and
I was done. We can talk about that.
okay, go ahead.
So I'm just concerned that, this week we got there have been 2 instances where we've gotten the minutes a month, 2 months after the meeting. And I know you had raised this issue with the CRA. It's better to have the minutes as close as possible to the meeting. We used to get minutes and documentation either late Thursday or first thing Monday morning. For this meeting, the materials were not provided until Tuesday morning, which I think that's, that makes it difficult. And as well, I don't understand why the mask requirement wasn't on the agenda so that the public could know about it.
That was my fault. That was a late thing that I worked with Terrell Hill on that. And by the time I got a copy from him and worked on it, and I think it took me a day to put that together. Jay had it for a day. Michael and staff had it for a day. So by that time, almost a week had gone by. So if you want to blame somebody, you can blame me on that one.
Right, but I'm saying I think it's better, particularly since we're adopting a resolution, to have it on the agenda. You can always pull it, but to give people notice. But I'm just concerned that we're getting our materials later and later, and it makes it more and more difficult to properly prepare.
Well, like I said, we couldn't put that on the agenda because we got it late, well after. Like
Right.
I said, it was still being worked on, so we sent it out, and you even got it today. So,
Right, but if there's an idea of it, you can.
oh, we didn't even have an idea. That was something that came up, and then the mayor came and literally it was like this week, like he said, when he got it and said, okay, let's Let's do it because of the spike and because of the numbers and because of what we were seeing this week.
I
It was
understand that
relevant.
part,
We
and
don't have to
that's
wait till
not fully under your control. I'm more concerned about not getting the minutes and the packets until Tuesday morning.
Work on the minutes. Get into it earlier.
You know, and that type of stuff, that's not something I can fix. You need to talk to staff about that with
Right.
you know, with your meeting with Michael and several things that you brought up, that the median strips and so on, that he had the answers to. I don't have the answers to. That would be the opportunity to get those things answered.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know what, I'm asking him about something, Mayor, that he presented on. I didn't know, I mean, I'm asking him specifically about things that he presented on tonight, following up on the details.
Yeah, I know you do. Okay.
And I just, you know, I don't know what he's going to say in his report. So I can't ask him before he makes his report.
Well, all of these things we did talk about in my report. I tell everybody that we go over what I'm going to report on. It's something that I want to keep relevant. Like I said, as soon as the project's done, we close it and we move on. So,
Right, but I think for all the commissioners, I mean, I'm just concerned that we need to get our materials a few days earlier,
Okay.
so that we can properly prepare.
Right.
Is that it?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, with that, I have a 10B, the attorney. Jay, do you have anything to report?
Yes, Mayor, your request for your ordinance, that ordinance has been, the draft has been done, and Mike has a copy, and I need a little guidance maybe from the commission. I also copied Patrick a copy of the draft. Only, this is the ordinance on your special magistrate.
Yes.
Revoking, repealing what we had and going to a special magistrate.
Right.
The reason I didn't circulate it to the commission is simply because it's deeper than maybe we want to understand. But Miss Eckhart spoke to it, put a lot of it on Michael for not having the codes, our codes, all on the internet. Well, I can tell you, when I started looking at my code book, what Deb had for her code book, comparing notes with Michael, and had to call Patrick, our codes have not been codified, to my knowledge, in 20 or 30 years. And what that does is, when the city attorney goes to his code book to look for what ordinance we're going to repeal, and it's not even in there, I have to get City Hall to hunt and look for what code we're going under with the code enforcement. It makes it very difficult to put together a good product. Now, if it's difficult for the city attorney to make heads and tails out of the codes and what we're operating with today, it must be for a layman to go into our codes and figure out what they should or shouldn't do, or what they can and can't do. And I'm saying all this to strongly suggest, and I've talked to Michael and I've talked to the mayor, to strongly suggest to budget or start thinking about budgeting for a codification of our codes, so that not only can Ms. Eckhart go online and see a complete codification of any ordinance she's looking for, but also have printed copies where if people want to come in City Hall and buy a set of our codes for $10 or $20 or whatever is reasonable to get our money back. We really need that. We really need that. Michael needs it. I need it. The mayor needs it. All of you commissioners should be able to go thumb through our code book and find what you're looking for. And the average person should be able to.
I've talked to Michael about making that a priority in the upcoming budget. And my copy on my desk, and maybe there's a newer copy, but my copy that I had on my desk actually has, if I recall correctly, it was an ordinance against having a white cane with a red tip in town, because you would be, that's reserved for blind people or something like that. That's how outdated my ordinance book was.
Some of it is, yes.
You could almost throw the whole thing in the trash and start again. Most of it is very, very old. And I think we could probably start anew, lifting a lot from other municipalities and work and then build on that.
Well, we have some good ordinances.
Yeah, I'm sure we do.
Ordinances, but they need to be placed in the proper position and throw the ones that have been repealed in the garbage can. And some sense needs to be made out of all that.
Yeah, sir.
Commissioner DeVito.
Oh, I'm sorry. I might have interrupted Commissioner Banks?
I was trying.
Go ahead.
I was trying to say this. That code book, I got one. It's just the old and what we've been doing in the past. What we've been doing in the past, and Commissioner West can agree on this. When we have a problem, we go back and deal with the code at that time. What we really need, and we've been saying that we're going to do this not recently, get our code book updated. And it really need to be updated. It's very outdated. I can see some stuff when George Miller was on the commission. Now, you know that's been a long time.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner DeVito.
Okay. I am very confused as to how we got to this state. I think I raised the issue maybe 3 years ago as a member of the public, and I was told then by Patrick Kennedy, I believe, that he and I don't know, I think at one point he and the former administrative assistant were supposed to have folded all the new ordinances into our code. That's what I was told. Until we have a new code, however, we do have ordinances. They were online. I don't see any reason why the ordinances that were online can't be put back online. And I was somewhat disturbed to hear we had an issue with burning without a permit, which I think it was adopted just a few years ago, that there's a procedure for burning in town, which is generally prohibited. You can apply it to the fire chief. I did not find that online. I had to ask the fire chief. There's a paper copy of it. So to me, I just don't see why we can't put what was there on there, and what happened to whatever.
Can Michael answer that?
Sure.
I can, and this is the thing, and this has been asked and answered. We've talked about it in our meetings. I was told that what's online, and I found it out in several instances, that it is not up to date what was on there. And I'm running into that problem with land development codes specifically. So it's not a good practice to put things up there that confuses the public, and it is not what our current and latest is. So once again, we're trying to overhaul it and trying to get to one page right now until we can get someone to overhaul it. Like I said, get rid of all the outdated things that don't apply, make sure we codify all of the things that have passed and that we want part of our code, because we have our code of ordinances for a regular code of ordinances, and then we have our land development code. That's
Right.
a big task, and it's not something that's it's gonna take, a month or two. It's gonna take a while to go through them.
Okay,
So
so what
I'm
we're
trying to get them right now to get one version to put on the website, and then I will. But whether that is or not, we're working on it.
okay, but our charter is not even on the website.
Well, once again, that goes back to my website thing about putting documents up there. First of all, making sure I have the right version. Second of all, I want to make sure that they're compliant. Okay, because a lot of
ADA
the
compliant.
they're ADA compliant. Some of them they need to be updated. because they have wrong dates or they just haven't been updated with certain information. So I'm trying to go through that. We are a small city with a small staff. We have full utilities, we have police and fire. We've got codes to cover. There's a lot going on. And in the past several months, we've taken monumental steps to get to one point, and we will continue to do that.
Well, it is, I have never seen a city that had absolutely no ordinances or charter available to the commissioners or the public or anyone. I am very concerned about this. And
Commissioner, we discussed this, and I said, if you wanted a copy of whatever was whatever we had, we can give it to you. We've already talked about this.
No, we didn't. That's another issue that we talked about. That's the policies and procedures. I did not ask you for the codes or the charter.
No.
I didn't ask you for those. No, we didn't talk about that.
Well, I think we all recognize that this needs to be worked on. This needs to be a priority as we move looking at the budget. So I've talked to Michael about that, and I think that that's something that we're going to have to shape into the new budget.
Well,
right now, this is the Jay's
time
section. Yeah. So, Jay, you have anything else for us?
No, I was just going to ask if I have the commission's backing or approval that I can use Patrick as a source of information if he charges us. Now, I'm not talking about thousands of dollars, but I don't have that kind of money in my budget. I mentioned to Mike that I think I've got a couple $1,000s in there. But if Patrick charges me, I don't know, $200 or $300 for trying to put together a couple codes so they fit in our codification scheme, I just want to be doing that with permission of the council and not just spending city money on my own.
Well, let's say at this point in time, and we could go back and change it. Let's say we authorize $500, and I don't know if that's enough or not. Where would that money come from? At this point,
it would come out of my budget if Mike found that I had any.
Yeah, I know. That's one of the things we have Debbie on for.
Yeah, Ms. Peacock.
We just talked about that today.
You're muted. There you go.
We budgeted $20,000 for the recodification.
When? Wait, where? When?
In this, in the budget, we have a budget line in Jay's department for $20,000. And Patrick put it in there for this year's budget.
Okay, if I could speak to that, please, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Okay, that was not for recodification. That's a different issue. We need an update of our land development code, our land use code. I'm the one that wrote the memo to Patrick, and that is what we discussed in the budget. Those are two different issues. Land development code update to allow us to have land development ordinances that make us a walkable and livable city are one thing. Just codification of ordinances into a code is something entirely different that's technical, and that is not what the $20,000 is for.
Well, here we are in July, and I assume the bulk of that money is still there, Debbie?
Yes, all of it is.
I think we can reappropriate $1,000 out of that to miscellaneous, shall we call it?
Well, under Robert's Rules of Order, I think the chair is not supposed to make a motion.
I didn't make a motion.
If we're gonna, point of order, Mayor, to reappropriate money, I think we need a motion. That has to be done by a motion and a vote.
Would you like to make that motion?
No, because the city attorney seemed to indicate that there is actually money allocated in his budget. Is that correct?
Looks like, yeah, it looks like I've got $20,000 I didn't know about. Sorry about
Well, I'm sorry, that was put into the 516 account. Jay, you have your regular salary plus you budgeted for $4,000 for outside legal.
Okay. And is it all still there? Can you tell?
There's $3,500 left.
Okay.
I don't think you need anything from us to approve how you use that, as long as it's for legal purposes.
No, but the people I use, like Patrick, I mean, I want consensus of I just want to be.
Yeah. Is there a consensus? I have no problem with it. Commissioner
Neither
Banks,
do I.
It's fine with me.
is a consensus good enough, or do you want to vote?
No, I mean, it's fine as long as it's all right with you guys.
Okay. Commissioner DeVito, you don't look so happy.
Right. Well, I have a lot of questions about why this was not done previously and why we were not informed of it. The last I heard, this was all brought up to date. So I'm very concerned about paying the former city manager for something that we were not informed was undone. So, I mean, we have a majority on this, but I just want to take note of that.
No.
Well, could I get a clarification on what you're talking about?
Yes.
You said that this is, you thought that what?
What is undone?
Well, number
All is done.
one, the city attorney is telling us now, I've not heard this before since I came onto the commission, that the codes are a mess and they're in such bad shape that he can't write a new ordinance regarding code enforcement, and the city manager can't put the codes or the charter up on the website, that they're in that bad of shape. We were not informed of that previously by the then city manager, that that was undone and needing to be done. And the last I heard, when I asked as a citizen, and I was told that that was done, I think we were told in a meeting, that that was done by the city manager and the administrative assistant, that it was done in-house. So the last I heard, it was completed. I'm just dismayed to hear that this has gone on so long and we were not told about it, because now we're a little bit dead in the water. So, but we have a majority, and the majority.
Well, I beg to differ with you, but we've talked about codes quite a few times, needing to codify them and how expensive it would be. We've talked about that in open meeting.
Well, and may I say,
I don't know what you were told 3 years ago.
Fine, but and I will just point out, I don't need to belabor this any further. I understand Mr. Asbury thinks I'm mistaken, but I have said to the city manager, and this points it up, sometimes things should be put in writing. Reports from the city manager or the city attorney would be very helpful to have in writing, because then we wouldn't have to be talking about who said what. But there's a majority consensus. I personally just have nothing more to say, and maybe I was mistaken, but we're not in a good situation.
We talk about former Mr. Kennedy. I believe he did talk in the budget last year and mentioned about having to work on the codes, and that's where that money came from.
No, that was not where that money came from, because
That's my note from Patrick.
So it was not for codification of the codes. I have the memo.
With the LDC, and that's really what needs a lot of the work.
I'm sorry, what?
We're talking about, we're not going to belabor that point anymore, so.
Right, but so y'all have approved the $500 for outside legal help. So I think that's all that needs to be said.
Ms. Peacock, you were trying to say there was a note in the budget?
My notes that I wrote in my budget when Patrick and I went over it says, this is my note, says to redo and update the city's codes for that $20,000. It's in the planning and zoning budget, but that's what it says.
Right, but it's in the planning and zoning budget because it was to update the land development code. That is what we talked about in our meetings. I don't know if we still have the tapes, but that is what it was for. Because I'm the
Okay,
one that
now
brought it up.
that's the $20,000. Now the
Yeah.
$3,500 that is left in Jay's budget, I don't want to limit to Patrick or anybody else for that matter, $500. He's got $3,500 left in his budget. I say that he used that at his discretion for legal help.
Sure.
Are we in consensus with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Jay, we have anything else?
No,
If I have a point, Jay, and we talked about it briefly. I talked to that Mr. Ledbetter and about the old Masonic Lodge, and I talked to him on the phone, and like he told somebody else, he's got nothing to do with it, although the GIS has got him as owner, proprietor, what have you, of record. And he was trying to tell me that somebody else on Long Station was, and I couldn't get an address on that.
Jared Dupney. I can tell you his name.
That's what he said. Yes. Well, I said, can you spell that for me? And he said he couldn't. And I asked somebody else who lives in Long Station, and he said he didn't know the man.
I
So-
know him. I know right where he's there.
Okay.
I
With-
know he and his wife. Yeah, I know where they live.
The issue is, well, Mr. Ledbetter said that this is the guy you need to talk to about that property. So we would like to maybe take it down or do a quit claim or do something because it's been condemned. The back wall, I understand, is in bad shape. If they want to sign it over to us, it's a lot easier just to go in there and demo it. It's going to exceed the value of the property anyway. But that would be the easiest way to do it. So, what are your
Mayor,
yes, sir. What is your thoughts on that, sir?
I will get in touch with Mr. Dupney and have him to contact you through City Hall.
Okay.
But I don't think he can give that order because
Right.
the Grand Lodge is in Jacksonville, Florida. And the Grand Lodge up in Jacksonville, which is really in charge of all property like that, gonna have to be the one to give that order. So, but I'll let him tell you that.
Okay. Well, even that, if he tells me that, that gives us somebody to contact and see if they can sign it over, because right now they've got a condemned property on a small lot. So,
Will do.
yeah, that'd be good. That's all I had for you, Jay, and it looks like that's been answered. Anyone else have something on that? City departments, the police department. Chief, you got the floor.
Okay, Mayor. Thank you, sir. I'm gonna change it up a little bit, Mayor, and talk about some things that just happened recently, and then I'll get to my monthly report.
Okay.
Actually, one that just happened and is still kind of ongoing right now. We've had, and this is going to tie into one of our other calls. We had a guy park his car at the Family Dollar store up there and left the keys in the ignition and went inside the store, left the car running.
No.
Someone took it. We know who. Matter of fact, Sergeant Ward is working it right now. And actually, my hat's off to him. He's already located the vehicle. It was stolen and was taken up to Paradise Shores. He's got it returned and turned into the owner. The owner is extremely happy because nothing's missing, nothing was damaged. So he got lucky on this one. But I think maybe because we had one prior, I'm going to talk about in a little bit. We're going to have to maybe get some stuff out on social media about just way we were finally getting people to lock their doors. Now we've had 2 people leaving their cars running. Good job by Sergeant Ward. He recovered the car already, and we have he's working on getting a suspect. This is going to relate back also to some things I want to talk about. We've had two within the last day. We had a burglary right here at Palmeros, which is 105 Summit Street. Again, we're pretty sure we know who did it. It was kicked in the door, went in the back office and took nothing but some change. So it was more of a nuisance. The owner, he's more upset about the damage to his door and business than anything else, and I don't blame him. And at the same time, on the same date, we had a vandalism down here at the All-Star Car Wash, where somebody threw a brick through the window, hidden behind a van where you couldn't see it, but didn't go in. Just malicious vandalism, criminal mischief. And that was all done just recently. And we have been writing Summit lately. With that, though, I want to go ahead and talk and instead of going in the order I had listed, we had a larceny, also another auto theft earlier in the month, getting back to my monthly report, at the Valero 300 South Summit, where the vehicle was left running. Somebody jumped into the vehicle and took off. It was last seen while he was in the store. It was last seen going southbound. We still working that. Got a couple things going. I really can't say much about it other than we want to stop this right now. We don't want a rash of these happening. But people just don't leave your cars running, please, and going into the store. Not that you shouldn't be allowed to. It's really not legal, but I feel sorry for them, and we're going to do our best to get the vehicles back. With that being said, I'm going to relate them calls to a certain juvenile because I can't say names. We have a juvenile back out that we were hoping we wouldn't have problems with. We are. So one of the things we started, worked with the Department of Juvenile Justice. I know people say this is the police job or whatever. They're supposed to go around, but I worked real closely with what was his name? Matthew Carter. He's a probation officer. He works for Juvenile Justice, and we're going around any juveniles in Crescent City. We're doing curfew checks. So we go knock on the door a couple of times a night, a couple of times a week, whatever it takes. If they're not home, we'll go back later on, and we're calling him, and he's working with us, and he's violating them. So a certain juvenile we're talking about, who is a suspect in all three calls I just told you about, has a warrant out. Two of them are from our knock and talks. Now we just have to pick them up on him and stop this one-man crime wave because he's got 14 warrants out already. We've passed this along to the sheriff's office. They're also looking for them. Hopefully we'll clear up some of these cases. But again, anybody listening, just do me a favor. And if you go into the store, turn your car off and lock it up. Even if it's 5 minutes, even you grabbing a pack of cigarettes or something. Okay. With that being said, I'll go back to some of the calls for the month. We had a burglary at 615 Gumby. This one here, the homeowner has one of these smart camera videos where he could be somewhere and he looks at it and he sees two subjects in his home. So he calls 911. Now that's not a good thing. It's an apartment complex. He looks in there. How'd you like to be looking at your camera and seeing two guys in your house? Okay, not good. We put his face, we put the they look like juveniles, young adults. We put them out on social media. We're waiting to see back what kind of hits we get on him. Again, we think we know who he is, and hopefully we'll have that one solved. Larceny, two car breaks into autos, which probably are connected because one was 713 Oakwood, the other was 840 Oakwood, I'm sorry, about the same time frame. Again, I know I asked for caution for crime. Nobody likes to be a victim of crime, but this one was at a friendly gathering. The victim was at her house with a friendly gathering. She got home and she left a firearm in a car, in an unlocked vehicle. And then the firearm's missing. We haven't gotten the firearm back. It's listed in the Florida and nationwide computer system is listed, but again, I asked the public to lock your cars, even at a neighbor's house or a party. Don't leave a firearm in your car unlocked.
Okay.
The second one was down the street. Somebody went rummaged through the car and they took like a small tool set, one of them ratchet sets type things out of value. Not a lot of money, but it's still, it's our tool set. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get any prints or videos off of that one. But again, just like leaving your car running, both of these deaths from the cars were kind of a crime of opportunity. Both of them were left unlocked that night. So again, we maybe we get back on our social media campaign because it was working. We had some a minor larceny down at, I don't know if you guys have been down to Leonard's Landing lately. They're doing a lot of work. I know you guys all know someone bought it, really cleaning it up. We've been keeping a lot of extra watch on it, but somebody took some copper wiring about 500 feet from the guy. So here's a guy coming to Crescent City trying to make the neighborhood nice, trying to clean up, bring us something, and some idiot's got to go and take his copper wiring. But that's a tough one. We look at, that's a tough one to catch, who's ever pawning that off at these junkyards and stuff like that. But we do put a call out to our neighbor cities and ask them if they're having the same thing, and ask them if they can keep an eye at their local junkyards for us. Pretty much, Mayor. Couple of minor traffic crashes. We're doing good in that area. No, out of the three of them, they were all minor and no injuries, no serious injuries. Couple of disturbances, we can't do anything, but all have been solved, either complaint affidavit or arrest, or if they've been a domestic. And then that would really cap my report for tonight, except for you did want me to mention the Mrs. Ash's complaint about the camera. If I'll touch on that.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Well, one, Mayor, we did go ahead and talk to the Public Works Director, Mr. Harris Keith, and the camera in there, the homeowner had a concern that the camera was going into her property or looking into her bedroom or something like that. That's not the case, I assure you, sir. The camera's been inactive for a while, according to Keith, who's been around here for a while. He said at least, I think Mr. Esposito, I think he told me 2 or 3 years. So I'll make contact with her, let her assure her that there's no voyeurism or nothing like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And I understand the concern, but it's just not, it's not facing that way. And I don't think she knew what it was, but we'll reach out and talk to her. And then the fireworks in the park thing, I talked to Sergeant Ward because he's been here longer than me. He said that has been going on. Just so you know, nobody did pull a permit. And I know that's something you may have wanted to talk about with the rest of the commissioners, about maybe a workshop or something, or with the city manager in the future, and something to keep an eye on. But they did have a pretty large gathering. They did clean it up. I'll give them credit for that. They left it nice and all. And I don't know if this will be needed to be discussed, because next year Governor DeSantis' order with the firearms, allowing firearms on the 4th of July. And
Fireworks.
Right.
Fireworks. You said firearms. Fireworks.
Oh, okay. I apologize. It's been a long. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Just to make sure people don't get any idea.
I'm gonna put myself back in that space background. I think that's where I belong right now. But yeah, no people. I made a mistake. Don't be shooting off firearms in the park. He put in Bill 140, which allowed, because what's going on with the COVID and all, he was trying to get some community relations going on where people could shoot off fireworks on their own. What was it? New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and then 4th of July. Hopefully this is all over with, and maybe the governor will repeal that order, and we won't even have to bother with this. But yeah, just as you asked, Mayor, no one did pull any permits for that we did double check on that, and they have to come through us anyway. So, I don't know if you wanted to touch on that anymore or.
I was going to. So you're saying the governor was going to sign that you can't do fireworks on the.
Well, no, Mayor, what happened was because of the COVID and all of that, and everybody canceled their fireworks display, like we
Right.
had to cancel red, white, and blue. He put out an order, 120, Bill 140, which allowed citizens to shoot off fireworks this year on the 4th of July legally.
Right.
And then he did allow, and if this stays in effect, he's going to allow it on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. But there are a couple of things, if you did discuss it, we would have to take in consideration.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. And on that point, Commissioner DeVito.
No, I was just going to say, actually, I think it is a law that went into effect that Governor DeSantis signed. I don't think it's for just this year. I think it is ongoing. That actually, as far as I know, came out of the legislature. There were some concerns in that about fire season, also problems with nesting birds, etc. But I think that's an ongoing bill that is not, that I don't think it was governor's order. I think it was a bill by the legislature and the governor signed it. So yes, I think we might want to research that for sure. I'm 99% sure it's going to be around next year and we would have to deal with that.
Okay, you're probably right. What I do is I get mine off the police chief's website, things that send out the new laws, and when he put it out. The only thing that would concern me is when the city uses red, white, and boom,
right?
We use a certified, licensed, insured company such as Santori and Sons, who are used to shooting them off. Sorry about that. And the liability, they have $1 million liability thing. So something we want, like when we use our city events, that's something we may want to think about, or you may want to discuss when we allow other people to do it.
Right.
Okay, I'm reading here, just Googling here, and this is fireworks safety, South Walton Fire District. So I don't know how applicable it is. Under Florida law, only sparklers approved by Florida Division of State Fire Marshal are legal for consumer use. It is illegal to use exploding and or flying fireworks in Florida, which includes shells and mortars, multiple tube devices, Roman candles, rockets, and firecrackers. I did not know that.
Well,
Neither did I. And they sell them right in the parking lots.
Well, Commissioner Banks, they've been selling them for 100 years. What they do is they have this thing where you sign a form saying it's for agricultural use.
That's how you get them.
And
Yep, he's right.
right, but the legislature changed that for those dates that you mentioned, I am afraid. So I think if we research it, I mean, we don't have to settle it tonight. It's not going to come up till January 1st, but it will come up January 1st, I guarantee you, because they've been doing it for years. And with permission, well, they'll be doing it more.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I can forward you the commission and the mayor what I have here from what I get off the Florida Police Chiefs Association League. They always send us updates on the laws, but I believe you're probably right. We're gonna have to deal with it. Okay, that's really all I have, Mayor, unless there's any questions.
Didn't say firearms. So,
Mr. Mayor, I just have one question for the chief.
yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
On the issue of leaving vehicles running with the key in it, I know these people had their car stolen, but I think I was always taught that that is technically a violation.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Chief?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Right, because a child could get it or somebody could, I mean, it's dangerous in and of itself.
Yeah, it's dangerous. And we've seen people leaving, when you mention childs, we've seen them leaving with children and going in. And now, I'll be honest, this is kind of new here because this just all of a sudden started happening. Yeah, yes, they can be cited. You're correct.
Right, and I'm not saying when your car's stolen, you need to be cited, but I'm saying you're not supposed to do it.
No, and it's something we need to go around and keep an eye on now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and there's, anyway, thank you. And thank you for your proactiveness in involving Department of Juvenile Justice and trying to get a handle on the juvenile issues. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And it was nice of them to work with us too. So, yeah, it was good.
And speaking of working, speaking of working with you, and you and I talked about this, when we had a situation south of town, you were able to work with the sheriff's department and the surrounding area. And I walked in, there was some pizza, and there was standing room only in that lunchroom of the police department. You had really gotten everybody down in the city. And that really speaks volumes about how well you're respected in the region, really, that you can pull this together when you need to. So they're very thankful for that. And
well, thank you, Mayor. And we did, just so everyone knows, we did send a letter to the sheriff and acknowledging his captain and his men for their expertise and their help. And Mayor, if you would have stuck around a little, we would have thanked you for the pizza. But
you know,
I thought you were coming back in, sir, and that we were briefing. But I would introduce you, and the guys were grateful. And by the way, they ate it all. I didn't get a slice. So.
And I thanked, I sent an email to Captain Woods. I don't know if I did for Deloach, but thanking him for helping us out here at South Florida or South Putnam. So we do appreciate it, and we need their help, and they are more than willing to help. So we are very appreciative of that.
Yeah, they have been great. They've been great.
I also want to add, I commended Chief Carmen. I was there. I stayed during the night with him for a while and saw the presence of not only our officers but also the sheriff's support with his deputies. And it was really a good sight to see, and it was a welcome. We did a lot of stopping at businesses and just it was. Thank you, Chief.
Well, I appreciate it. And yes, we're thanking the sheriffs, but I do want to thank our own guys because they all came out, all hands, and our reserves came out. So we had a nice little contingency. So yes, sir. Thank you.
Were you able to get a slice of pizza, Michael?
No, I did not.
Pizza was gone.
Busy.
Next time, no mushrooms.
Oh, okay. Well, I got like 5 cheese and something, and the other were pepperoni mushroom. Yeah. Sorry about that. Next time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Is that it? Is that your report?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone have questions for the chief?
I do have one. In our last meeting, we talked about the chief and the city attorney getting together and possibly coming up with a report on the possible noise solutions. Has anything been done with that?
No, I'm sorry. I haven't get with Ms. Dashberry yet.
I just had a citizen mention that again this past week. So I thought, well, let me see what you might have come up with. I understand this is a difficult problem.
Well, and I'm with you. Believe me, I don't like it any more than most of you guys do. And
Right. Actually,
yes, Commissioner DeVito.
right. Judy, a little clarification. Was the citizens issue noise from a car or noise from
A car, a moving car? Yeah.
What moving car? Okay, because I have had, actually, this reminds me, a resident also very concerned about noise from a home and disturbance of the peace, which is a whole different issue. But obviously it's not.
I think that one is probably easier to directly address. I believe, Chief. It's the roving cars. By the time you call and they get there, they're gone.
Well, the roving,
they make your windows shake. Go ahead.
Chief. Yes, Chief.
Well, Mayor, you had actually gave me guidance on this. The one with the roving, the cars and the boombox is a legislative. I got our hands tied on that right now until we can, I don't know, maybe come up with a way to address it with them. Didn't you, Mayor, at one time even talk to one of the legislators about it?
I talked to Senator Perry, Keith Perry. He actually came to the city, and that was the #1 issue. And Patrick was with me, and we talked to him as this is the #1 issue we had at that time. And I had some paperwork I left with him and his staff, and he gave me the name of a staff person to work with, which I did. And the problem was the original law, the noise ordinance, had a section in there, a carve out for what I figured or imagined was like a church saying, you know, with a speaker on it, riding around the neighborhood, pancakes on Saturday, you know, for $5, come to the church or something like that. So there was a carve out for that. And the Supreme Court of Florida said that was unconstitutional to have a carve out for one group and not another. So they threw the entire ordinance out, or the entire law out. So when I talked to Senator Perry, I said, look, man, just take that paragraph out. It's already passed. Just attach it to another piece of legislation and let's get it done. He said, we can't do it. It just can't be done.
Right.
So I'm as exasperated as anybody, because that was really, you know, it cycles up and down how much of an issue this is. And at that time, it was just, that was our biggest issue. And we just couldn't get the state to respond and do anything about it, introduce a bill or just attach it to another. Who's going to argue with that? It's already passed and you're cutting out one small couple of sentences, but they can't do it, apparently, according to Senator Perry.
I reach out to my colleagues around the other cities I know, and they all deal with this, and they're all frustrated with it. I don't know why people seem to think that's appropriate behavior, but they do, unfortunately. And
It's a way of showing off.
I have one observation about some of the cars.
Commissioner DeVito?
I see cars that have completely darkened windows, and some of the ones are making noise. Is that not a violation to have completely dark windows?
you know, you're correct. There, we can probably go ahead and start getting them on other violations, like the tinted windows, like you're saying, and you know, speeding and stop signs. We've been trying to pick up one of our main complaints has been Main Street. We've been trying to hit that pretty heavy lately. Again, Sergeant Ward has got his guys out there doing that pretty good too. So we've seen some activity there. Yeah, there are other ways of attacking it rather than me just sitting here telling you.
I'm just saying, sometimes I look down the street and I think, oh, there's a police car. I think it's one of your cars with the darkened windows, but it's not. It's, you know, it's just a car. And sometimes it's a car with very loud music.
Gotcha. That's something we could look at. Absolutely.
Now, the highway patrol will cite you for your windows too dark.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we got that equipment. I don't know how they charge, but I know some people that they don't charge for windows being too tinted.
Well, Commissioner Banks, they have a window tint meter that I would have to look at probably getting one, or maybe even they're calibrating well, maybe get with the highway patrol, seeing if they can give us some assistance with, or even borrowing one. But,
would our police cars pass?
Mine would.
Okay.
That would be another issue. Maybe make sure we're in compliance with that before, because in past practice, I have seen patrol cars that have had it too heavy, or I've had someone who may have had a canine car, which does have what am I thinking? A little bit of a leeway, and they'd be darked out for the dog's sake and to be legal. Then they retire the dog, and another officer is driving around with it, and it's not legal anymore.
Right.
I didn't know. Okay.
Okay. Anything else for the chief? Thank you, Chief. I appreciate you. Good report. What other departments do we have? I guess we're not going to do a code enforcement tonight. So if we have nothing else, Michael, department-wise, we'll move on to commission comments. And we're in commission comments.
I have several when there's time. I have several.
You got the floor, Judy. What would you like to say?
Did you have time to poll the businesses on Central Avenue for interest in the Main Street project?
Did
you were going to poll? Yes.
No.
Oh, okay. All right, then we'll leave that. I have a comment on Dexter Beach. We used to have a sign that said no boats Now, since then, I've seen jet skis up on the beach. And last fall, there were 2 airplanes up on the beach.
Oh my God.
You know, that's just not a safe thing when you have little kids running in and out and whatever. I think we should have no boats landing on the beach, no jet skis, and no planes. We used to have a sign that said no boats on the beach.
Okay.
The problem is that prop on the boat and whatever, that's just really dangerous.
Well, and the jet skis as well. That's been a problem.
Yes,
That's been a problem over in Tampa Bay where I used to live. You can seriously injure someone with a jet ski in a swimming area.
right.
When
And
the
they
jet-
have no business landing up there where kids are running around and whatever. Oh, it makes me shudder.
We'll look at a sign, Commissioner.
Okay, hurricane shelters and COVID-19, has anything else been brought up about that? Because
meeting-
the next couple months, we
The
should
meeting I
have,
had, we were cut down to, at Middleton Bernie specifically. I wrote the figures down. It's at my desk at the office. About 1/3 of normal capacity is what it would be coming in the coming season.
okay,
So it'd still be
So-
open.
Yes.
And I don't
Alrighty.
know, like Irma, I don't know if we were near or at capacity for residents or visitors.
it was my understanding it was really crowded.
I was
Uh,
there. It kind of reeked. I mean, you know, you
Right,
get
it was
all those people in
awful.
close proximity.
And bathroom situation, it was pretty bad.
And there was flooding there too.
Yes, there is from the atrium.
Yep, exactly.
Mhm.
They never fixed that, I guess.
Well, I don't know. It'd
I
be
assume
an
there's a drain
issue,
pipe because it sits up on a hill. I assume there's a drain pipe or something that has collapsed
But-
over the years.
I don't know if there's one in the atrium though, if they ever thought about that, but anyway. All right. What if they do have capacity or third and when the thing is full, it's full?
I
Mayor,
would
if can
assume.
interrupt,
Yes,
I
sir.
don't mean to interrupt, but
Yes, sir.
listening to the meeting, the weekly meetings, they are addressing the issue and they were discussing it and trying to brainstorm ideas to come up with it at the county EOC and the health department, because that's a concern of theirs, and they were trying to come up with other options. I don't know if they did. I can actually, one of our reserves, Jim Tran just stopped in. He's working up there now. I can always call him and ask for an update. But
Here's my thought. The high school has the gym floor. They could put cots on and people and separate them. This is not, and they're just in the cafeteria. Middleton Bernie only has a smaller cafeteria, and outside that cafeteria, they have 2 bathrooms, male, female, that have 2 stalls each. The bathrooms for the high school have like 6 stalls each. I just don't. And I know it's because Middleton Bernie has natural gas, and I don't know that the high school does for their cooking. I just don't understand why, you know, Middleton Bernie is just not large enough for a major catastrophic hurricane.
Well, I think they double brick the new building and the cafeteria area. I think they house people in more than beside the cafeteria. But I tell you how we can find out. The Red Cross is in charge of it. The Red Cross.
Right.
Right.
The best to get the information is to go to the Red Cross. Now the high school is not double bricked. So,
Right, but this is just a very, very awful situation because you're right. The bathrooms were all stopped up and flooded. Nowhere to actually use the bathrooms and washing up. And this was during that situation. You have a small cafeteria, people will be crammed in. And we're trying to look out for COVID-19, and August and particularly September are bad months for hurricanes.
Right.
Now, I was told this, now I don't know the truth to it. The new school that they built on 17 in Pearson, just before you get to Pearson,
Yeah.
I think the Red Cross double brick got a lot to do with that. So now, if you notice, we've been getting a huge amount of people from Volusia County coming up. So maybe that will take some of the load off Putnam County.
Well, hopefully.
Now, the people that are, a lot of them in trailers like Fruitland, Walaka, so on, are they coming towards Middleton Bernie for shelter, or is there another shelter up that way?
No, we're in.
Everybody heading toward Crescent City and Palaca.
Okay.
Right.
Right. Mayor, if you'll remember, I asked about this 2 months ago. I'm
You did.
glad Judy brought it up again, because I heard on emergency management call that they were going to reduce our shelter.
Mhm.
And yes, we have people in trailers. Either Matthew or Irma, we had someone killed in a trailer because a tree fell on it. I mean,
Right.
those are just not adequate. So, you know, they need to do something for us then besides tell us that we're going to be at half capacity. Because some people who are living in trailers, I would say.
It's a fair question. Maybe we need to put that with, I'll ask that. And Michael, don't let me forget, our next EOC meeting,
We will.
we'll ask about that.
But Mayor, this is a really important point for the people that need the shelters, that live in the trailers. We have to remember they may also have very limited ability to go very far, you know, due to lack of funds for gas or a running vehicle or whatever. They really need a shelter close by, I think.
And we need to get the word out to them.
Yep. Yeah, well, I mean, just about everyone's got social media now, but you're right. I mean, you got a couple of issues here, communicating with them about where a shelter is, finding maybe more space for a shelter, transportation. So there's a couple issues there, but I think we can ask to see if that Pearson, is it a middle school?
No, it's an elementary.
Elementary school.
I mean, if I drove by and didn't know, I'd say it was the University of Pearson.
It's a pretty nice school, isn't it?
Very nice.
I didn't go to a school like that. I'll tell you that right now.
Neither did we.
All right.
Now the high school is in Pearson is stormproof too. The Red Cross used that, but a lot of the people have been coming to Milton Bernie out there,
Right.
from Volusia County.
They had people in the hallways. I mean, I visit there every time, as Matthew or Irma, a couple of times and see how they're doing. It was crowded. I mean, It was where they were putting wherever they could.
And there are not bathrooms there to take that many people. I'm telling you, it's an old school.
But they were well behaved and getting by. So that was thankful for that.
Yeah,
Anything else on that? Go ahead. And any other comments for?
Did we decide for the city elections to keep our everything here with Deb?
Yeah, there was no motion for changing that last month.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm finished.
Anybody else would like to bring up something?
Well, I got two little small things, and I know Michael got a very busy schedule and got a lot on his plate, but there should be a letter on file somewhere about the state say that it possibility that we get some lighting coming in from Crescent City coming south. I don't know whether any of y'all have came into Crescent City at night. When you pass Winn-Dixie, it's terrible.
It's black.
Oh, yeah.
It's really dark.
But when Patrick was the manager, he looked into it, and he got it's a letter. So I think what I'm trying to tell Michael, if he can get time to kind of check up on that. Because Patrick said he didn't want us to drop the ball because they talked like they were going to do it. But when? They said they were going to put it in this year's budget. But we know we got a lot on our plate for this year. You know, the state.
Well, probably in about 10 years, they'll get here with 4 lanes, and they probably don't want to put new lights up right now and then have to move them. I don't know.
No, they ain't coming to Crescent City with the 4 lane. You can forget about that. They done did for Crescent City what they're going to do.
We've been talking about that literally for 50 years. And it's not happening.
But we want to continue to aggravate them. And I reckon that's the word you want to say. To just kind of remind them every now and then with a call or a letter and see how they're standing on it.
You got Michael, you got a connection with the DOT, don't you?
Well, I've got, I'm trying to make connections with District 2. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if you know John Browning. He's with the Department of Transportation for the state. I can reach out to him, see if he's got a contact for me.
Okay. And my second one, Michael, and I'll be through, is America is not our trash, people that pick up our trash is not on the ball. They still ain't doing it. So I don't know how we can get them on the ball. People put trash out, and I stop by and check and make sure it's the right size. And they still let it stay there till all the leaves come off it.
Okay.
Now,
Well, like I said, last time you called me about the settee, you know, if you have an incident like that, you need to tell me about it.
Okay.
So we can address it when you see it.
Okay. All right. That's my comments for tonight.
Okay. Anybody else?
I had a couple of issues that we said we would cover in
Yes.
commissioner comments. Okay, this is in the minutes from, I think, the last meeting, but just as a reminder, the League of Cities will have their annual conference virtually this year, and it's going to be August 13th through the 15th, which actually our commission meeting falls within that time period. But the last I saw, it's all online and it's going to be during the day. I haven't checked their website recently, so I'm assuming it's still on. And I'm just surprised we have not received something. And the redevelopment conference is supposed to still be on. That's October 14th through 16th in Ponte Vedra Beach.
Which conference is that?
That is the Florida Redevelopment Conference that has,
Okay.
you know, for cities that have CRAs, and it's for elected officials and staff. Y'all budgeted money for me to go last year. And I'm particularly bringing that up for us because I doubt that redevelopment conference will ever be held closer to us than Ponte Vedra Beach at Sawgrass. You know, we could actually, the registration fee is fairly expensive, but we might be able to drive over there, you know, and not spend more than one night or something like that. I really think that's an opportunity for us since it's so close. And I did get a lot of benefit out of it last year, although I did not remember the cap on administrative expenses, which you caught. As well, I know we have budget hearings coming up. Do we have any idea what those dates are going to have to be? Because I need to get some things on the calendar.
When do we usually have those? August?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
We're working to schedule those right now. Actually, we just had that conversation today with David. We've been talking about it, but now we talked about it today. Now that we've got that, we've passed the resolution for the trim, so we can schedule those dates.
right, but usually that's talked about in the meeting, so we can make sure that we don't have any conflicts.
Right.
And if we leave it till August, I mean, I have health appointments to schedule. So the sooner we can be looking at some dates, the better.
Lisa, did you want to go to that conference in Punta Vedra again?
Definitely.
It was Tampa last year, wasn't it?
Right. It was Tampa, and the hotel was very expensive. I stayed with a friend for a couple of nights. But to me, I'm happy to look it up and see. It's not till October. I'll look and see what the registration deadline is. They have some field trips that you can sign up for. And I think it was pretty pricey. The registration fee was between $350 and $500. But some of the seminars were really very beneficial, and the field trips, some of them looked, very good. So I would encourage, if we can afford it, and nobody's going to the League of Cities conference this year. I'm hoping that I would like to go. Yes. And I'm hoping some other commissioners will also.
If you went last year, I think it'd be good to piggyback on to this year to continue your information. If you
Sure.
still want to go.
Yes, thank you. And I felt like I learned something, and I would like to continue to do so, but so I appreciate that.
Okay. You have another point?
I have a question, and we've had so much going on. I do not remember. And the minutes for that meeting are not up on the website. When we hired Michael, there was a proposed contract, and I cannot for the life of me remember, and I can't find the minutes, and they're not online, whether we set a probationary period. Jay might remember this because he was involved in drafting the contract. Did we set a probationary period, and did we make any decisions about having a 6-month evaluation? I don't remember.
I'll have to look.
Yeah, Lisa, I'll have to look. I don't remember setting an evaluation time in this contract. I remember y'all talked about maybe evaluating after, I thought it was a year, but I don't know. I don't remember. I have to look back at the contract.
Okay, and the minutes, I think there was a third meeting. We had one special meeting in January, then we had a regular meeting in January, and I think that we had a second meeting in January. I can't find any minutes that have to do with the approval of the final contract. Okay. So that would be helpful to know.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the contract was like 2 pages, or I signed it, I think. We'll have to look for it. Yep.
Right, and so it's the signed copy and whatever we said at the meeting.
Right.
So a lot has happened. A lot of water under the bridge.
Yep.
Whole new world. Yeah, so I think that was all I had.
You talked about budget. We've been talking about budget, and something I've talked to Michael about, or what have you. This past year, well, right before Patrick left, he said, you should be charging when you drive to Palaca for meetings. And I started to. Now, I go to TDC, the Tourist Development Committee, I guess it is, the Chamber of Commerce and Animal Control Advisory Board. Now, 2 of those, the TDC, the Chamber of Commerce and the Animal Control are usually on the same day, about an hour break between the 2. But I had been charging when I was still driving up there for the mileage to Palaca and back. And of course, that'd be one trip for those 2 meetings, if that's all I did. If I could schedule something I had to do anyway that day, I wouldn't charge. But anyway, I don't know how much I spent. Maybe, I doubt Debbie's got it on the top of her tongue there. But we were pulling the money out of the education fund, or the training fund for myself. And I think there's $200 or $300 left in that I burned through. No money. I see you shaking your head no.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, unmute yourself there.
Don't worry about it, Mayor. Lisa found us $20,000 that
Okay.
you and I split.
Well, I told Michael, let's just pull it out of the tree fund. Anyway, going into the new year, when we look at budgets and so on, that's something the mayor does. And it gives you an opportunity to meet with the county commissioners and the logic meetings and so on. And I think it's worthwhile for me to go to these things. And I think, you know, I'm thinking, I don't know, we'll have to figure out what I spent during the year. $1,000, something for set aside for gas or something like that, for something like that. So just something to chew on. Well, yeah.
Well, Mayor, let me ask you, what happened to the logic meeting that we used to do every month or ever so often?
Yeah. I was going to all of them, and then, you know, Patrick and I would trade off on it. And
Right.
It seemed like it kind of changed a little bit to where they wanted to actually be, instead of like hobnobbing, you know, you'd meet Waste Pro guy, the Public Works guy, the county attorneys, you know, Suggs and so on. And if you had a problem, you knew who to talk to. You talked to him before. Hey, we talked about this, and you can meet him in person. Anyway, it changed to they wanted to do projects, so they wanted to have a mission. And you know, I was thinking at the time, the mayors ought to just pull back and do their own thing. Terrell Hill and myself and what's his name, Walaka and so on.
Walaka.
Yeah, so I haven't gone in a while because we you know, this whole COVID thing, but they usually met up at the golf course and they had lunch and some type of presentation and so on. Is that something you'd like to go to when they do it again?
No, not to this COVID get out of the way.
Yeah, well, absolutely. They're not going to do it until then.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Mayor, I do, that reminds me, since you brought it up, and I hate to do more work because you do a lot of work for us, but those meetings that you or the city manager attend on behalf of the city, that is the kind of thing that really, you're doing it on behalf of the whole, you're our representative.
That's true.
There should be some kind of report back to the commission as to what you or the city manager has done, and just a brief summary, because really it would be very helpful if the rest of us had some idea of what went on, and particularly if there's any documents that are handed out.
There are no documents handed out. It's a teleconference like we're doing right now. And it was Terrell Hill again who turned me on. Hey, do you know about this EOC meetings they're having on Tuesdays or Wednesdays? Actually, at that time, they were doing it twice a week. I said, no. He said, well, you know, let me hook you up. And I think that's, Michael, is that when you got word of it too? About 3 months ago or so. And I kind of got the impression the EOC really doesn't want us there.
Right. But I mean, whatever group it is where the city is represented, for example, I had no idea. I'd been a commissioner for a year, and I found out by chance that our city manager attended the chamber meetings. And we never knew what he did there or what was said on behalf of the city. Just, you know, a short paragraph and a summary of the activities, I think.
Yeah. Well, they have minutes, and I guess we could pass those along. You know, I'm an ex officio, or, you know, we're a non-voting member. And I can tell you the world revolves around Palaca. We're just planets or you know, the investment, it seems like, doesn't seem to get down this way. But yeah, that's something we should probably be doing. And as far as the EOC stuff, that is very at the moment, how many cases and so on. They don't give us a lot more information than that. Michael, can you fill in the empty spaces there?
That's the same thing. Some of them, they talk about proprietary information that they have at the moment, where we are. We talk about internally how we handle like spikes. what everybody is doing as far as internally handling spikes, taking temperatures, passing proclamations, things like that.
But
So-
Mike, not cutting y'all, but let me ask you this: what about the testing area? You know, we always been, ever since I been a little kid, they kind of like the black sheep of the family down here on South End. They always, just like the mayor said, Palaca was hit with a Dun Creek Bridge forward. But from Dun Creek Bridge on back, we were the last one. And so
yeah,
so
I'm kind of, cause I got people asking me, where can they go get tested for that virus?
well, you can get tested here in town.
Where at?
At the Family Express on Lemon and Main.
Well, let's hold on a second. So I have asked the EOC about getting testing here. They had family, and I don't know if they still do, but they did at one time. We put out there that the Family Care Express was doing testing, but you had to have a doctor's order to get tests. You just couldn't walk in there. They did that for a while. I don't know if they're still doing it. I had asked the EOC, and that we did have in-town testing several times. We've had a low turnout, but that doesn't mean I still don't ask the question. I have spoken with the EOC and that group there. We have been in contact about trying to get a mobile testing site, that the state has one mobile testing vehicle, and trying to get the possibility of bringing them here for a couple of days.
Right.
So that's something that we're working on, but once again, that's really new. I mean, as of like yesterday, late yesterday. So I until I get a confirmation, I really don't know if that's even going to happen. So, but I'm constantly asking about, you know, we don't want to be forgotten. South Putnam, once again, Crescent, the big area, right? As we said, south of the Duns Creek Bridge.
Right. Okay. I bet quite a few people been asking me about the testing area.
Mm-hmm. They can always call, by the way, they can always call the county hotline and set up testing.
Oh, okay. I'll take those notes.
Mayor,
Commissioner DeVito, yes.
so, I mean, getting a report back of what happens when we're represented at a meeting is one thing. If there's something like the COVID meetings as well, I didn't know till I asked Mary Garcia for some information, and she said, well, I talked to your city representatives. If you're going to meetings on a certain day and time, and we have questions that we want answered, it would be helpful to know, you know, that we could ask those questions through whoever is going to the meeting and have the opportunity to do that. Because Commissioner Banks, you know, has this testing question. I've had other questions, and I can only get it answered through our representative with Crescent City.
Right. I'll tell you, I was a little disappointed, majorly disappointed that after talking to EOC about how badly we were infected down here in the city and not getting a straight answer, I have to read in the paper that Lakewood was had several cases, and that was they couldn't give me a heads up on that. So I'm disappointed.
Yeah,
I am too.
I understand they've shut all the fire doors at Lakewood, and everybody has to stay in their room now.
Wow. My heart goes out to the people, the families that have a loved one there. It is a sad situation.
Yeah, it really is like a prison.
right. Well, and to circle around, Mayor, I think we have done the right thing to adopt the resolution, and about the cases being in the zip code 32112. My observation is it doesn't really matter whether the infected people are inside the city limits or outside, because we're the commercial center, and I can guarantee you that most of them are shopping inside the city limits.
You're
Absolutely.
right.
But the information is helpful.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying they put us at risk whether they reside in the
Understood.
city limits or outside, because I think they're coming to the post office or, you know, whatever.
Yep.
They're going to the same place as city residents are.
Absolutely. You're right. Anyone else have anything? Mr. Banks?
No, sir.
Commissioner West?
I think I'm done.
All right. If there's nothing else, this meeting is closed. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you, everyone.